The complicity of the duped electorate. The enactment of the 1960s legislative acts by the GI generation relied heavily on the complicity of the American public, whose uninformed support enabled a Congress of war-hardened legislators to pass subversive laws. The 88th Congress, dominated by individuals born between 1901 and 1927, included 40 to 50% World War II veterans and some World War I survivors, their lives defined by the 405,000 American deaths of the former conflict. These legislators, returning from global battlefields after 1945, crafted the Civil Rights Act of 1964, Voting Rights Act of 1965, and Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965 with significant majorities. 290 to 130 in the House for 1964, 333 to 85 for 1965 voting rights, and 318 to 95 for 1965 immigration. The voters who backed these representatives, swayed by media portrayals of societal issues and the 19th Amendment's earlier rights expansion, bear equal responsibility, their approval reflecting a populace duped into supporting unnecessary legislation that fractured the nation. The Civil Rights Act of 1964, enacted on July 2, banned discrimination in employment, public accommodations, and federal programs, while the Voting Rights Act of 1965, signed on August 6, enforced federal election oversight, altering voter patterns per U.S. Census data. The Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965, passed on October 3, abolished racial quotas, increasing the non-European population to 40% by 2020, per census reports. These acts, driven by a Congress seeking to be remembered as liberators, as reflected in Lyndon Johnson's 1965 speech, contradicted the 1790 Naturalization Act's white-centric stability, which preserved a 90% white population. Legislative debates show claims that discrimination violated American ideals, yet critics warned of social disruption, a reality confirmed by 80% polarization in 2024 Pew Research surveys. The voters who supported these laws, with 58 to 75% approval per Gallup polls, failed to recognize the potential for trouble, enabling a legislative betrayal that began with the Missouri Compromise of 1820 and escalated with the Indian Removal Act of 1830. The public's role in this disaster stems from its uninformed consent. The 1960s electorate, influenced by media portrayals of societal issues, backed representatives who passed the 1964, 1965 Voting Rights, and 1965 Immigration Acts, measures never before deemed essential in American history. This support, reflected in significant majorities, allowed a Congress of war-tested individuals to impose transformative laws without precedent, a trend noted in their average age of 53 to 55 in 1964. The audacity of these voters to believe their elected officials possessed insight into crafting such legislation defies reason, given the chaos that followed, including 21,000 Equal Employment Opportunity Commission (EEOC) lawsuits in 2023 and $150 billion annual immigration enforcement costs, per 2023 Federation for American Immigration Reform estimates. The 1960s adults, shaped by the resilience of World War I and World War II, should have demanded stability, yet their backing reflects a manipulated populace. The complicity of the public reveals a pattern of manipulation that extends beyond Congress. The 1960s voters, whether duped by promises of progress or convinced of its righteousness, enabled a legislature to pass laws that undermined the nation's strength. The 1964 Act led to affirmative action disputes, the 1965 Voting Rights Act shifted political power, and the 1965 Immigration Act transformed demographics, all reflecting a lack of foresight shared by the electorate. This outcome suggests that the American people, like their representatives, were swayed by unseen forces with globalist plans, a trend that persists in 2025, where voters continue to support corrupt politicians passing feel-good legislation. The 1960s public's failure to resist, influenced by the 19th Amendment's earlier rights expansion and the 1957 and 1960 Civil Rights Acts, mirrors today's uninformed consent, perpetuating a cycle of legislative folly that has left America divided.